Are you ready to think outside the box? Because today we're going to make your sentiment the star. Today we're making two beautiful cards with two very different results using the Versatile Greetings 3 Comfort Edition. This has some really cool sentiments in it, and you'll see that they mix and match extremely well. Now, typically the sentiment of my card is one of the last things that I think of, and it's a last minute thought and something that kind of fits. When it's a bigger sentiment like this, there does need to be a little bit of planning because the balance needs to be right on your card. So the first card that we're going to be making today shares how you can really use all of these sentiments to be the focal point of the card, and the floral background that we're creating here is really going to be just that. It's going to be a really pretty background, but the main focus of the card is going to be the sentiment because I'm using a ton of these words together. So I don't really want this floral design to take over the card. I have chosen some really soft colors. You could even use a lighter version of the colors or do some no line coloring. I didn't even stamp with black ink here. I used a grey ink because I did want this to be a background. Now this set has a coordinating stencil that makes colouring really fast and easy to do because you really don't want to be spending a ton of time creating something that's going to be, a lot of it's even going to be covered up, so you're not even going to see it, but it's still there. So it does need to look pretty and eye-catching. So I've used colours that are a little bit more muted and that flow well together. But I did get a little heavy-handed when it came to the centre of the flower. So I came in with a fine liner and added some detail with that. It's just a black marker. And then added some black ink splatters, which helped balance that really dark center of the flowers, but you're going to notice that it does work well in the end. So I did need to work out exactly what I wanted my sentiment to say. These words are all from the same set, so they're great. You can mix and match and create a ton of different sentiments using this set. I'm using some black cardstock here because I wanted the contrast. So what I did first was just lay out my basic design with the sentiments to make sure that the balance was right. It was missing a little something, so that's why I grabbed a heart from the lovely envelopes set, and I just think that that created a really good visual sort of flow for the sentiment design. Now I do want to pop this up because I think the dimension adds a great contrast and it gives that bit of a shadow. If you are wanting to pop it up, you can actually do this a few different ways. I'm using some foam squares. Now I am using some black foam squares here because I've got black cardstock and I feel that that just works a bit better, but you can use white if that's what you've got. And another way that you can do this, which is a little bit more post friendly, is to just layer up multiple layers of die cuts and just add them directly to the front of the card like chipboard. So I did do 3 layers of cardstock because I want this to be pretty sturdy, and then I'm also adding the extra dimension with the foam. So having the dimension, the black cardstock and the big floral background in some more muted colours really adds a great contrast and makes that sentiment the star of the show. So you can place the sentiment wherever you like. Because I've got so many words, it was best, I thought, to focus it in the center of the card design. If you've got a shorter sentiment, even if it's a bigger sentiment, you might find that it would look better off to one side or a little bit lower or higher, just depending on the look that you want and whatever design you've used in the background. And a tip here, when you are lining up the words, don't press, if you are using foam tape, don't press hard on the foam tape until you've got it exactly, like got everything on the card front and you're happy with the position of the words, and then you can add pressure. The tape will become stronger and will get a stronger hold the longer it's in place. So you do have a few minutes where you can move things around a little bit if you need to. Okay, so we're on to the second design, and we are definitely thinking outside the box here because we are creating blocks of sentiments. So I have worked out a bit of a layout on an A2 card panel here. I was thinking, because that would be one just for you, thinking of you. And then the last sentiment I'm going to do something a little bit different with. So stick around and you'll see how I make this word awesome work on this block design. So once I've got the basic layout, then it's time to choose some colors, and I've gone for some really bright colors here this time, and I've also chosen the same tone of color but in a light version, and you'll see why when we start putting it together. It's going to help with that contrast. So I have a piece of cardstock that's cut just smaller than the front of an A2 card, and then I'm grabbing some of the coloured cardstock, so the brighter colours, because this is going to be my base colour, and I've cut them larger than I need to because this is going to give me a little bit of wriggle room where I can come back and cut the panels down to size to fit the panel and make sure that they're laid out and balanced correctly. So one of the important things when you are doing inlay die cutting is to make sure that you keep all of the pieces, especially like the background pieces, because these will need to be inlaid back into the design. I would recommend really slowly pulling the tape off, and I often pull it back on itself because you don't want to accidentally tear the panel that you're creating, because then you're going to be able to see that. I mean, you can cover it up with maybe an enamel dot or do something like that, but it's easier just to take your time removing the tape so that the paper doesn't get torn and you don't have to start again. I do like to try and cut my multiple words together if I can. You just need to be aware that you don't want the dies to be touching when you run it through your machine or overlapping, because you can damage your machine or the dies as well. So it does pay to have that tape to hold it in place. So all these lighter versions of the cardstock I've also cut the sentiments from, because they are going to be the ones that are inlaid. Now I've covered the piece of cardstock, this panel of cardstock, with some A4 adhesive sheet, so the whole sheet is going to be sticky. If you don't have any of this A4 adhesive sheet, that's okay. You can just use a tape runner to cover a whole piece of card, or you can use some liquid glue, whatever your preference is. I just find it's quicker and easier to use something that's fully adhesive, and it does let me lift it up and shift a little bit if I need to, as long as I haven't pressed too hard. Working out my balance for the design was probably the thing that took most of the time here. It wasn't a difficult card to make, but it is fiddly. Now, if you aren't into die cutting, inlay die cutting, and all the headache that can go with that, if you're not a fan, I love the look of it, and it just gives that real wow factor. But you could simply repeat this similar design without the inlay die cutting and just add the sentiments directly on top of the blocks instead. Another option I thought would look great would be to make this a full shaker card. I reckon that'd be a lot of fun. So if this is all inlay die cut, then you can add a panel over front of a clear shaker panel and fill it full of sequins. I'm really into interactive cards at the moment, so I was very well behaved today and didn't make one. And this is where it's really important to make sure that you keep all of the small pieces from the die cutting. And to help with the balance, I came in with a couple of pieces of coloured cardstock that I'd cut into strips, just to create some spaces, because the balance just wasn't looking right without them. I thought about doing these in black. I think that would have looked really good too, but I didn't use any black on this card at all. So this one panel here, the pink panel with the word awesome, what I decided to do was, because I couldn't inlay die cut this one, I thought it would look good to actually pop it up. So I cut the word awesome in half, and I'm going to add dimension just to this one section of the card, and that's going to give it a little bit of a focal point and look a bit different from the remainder of the card. So because I had made my panels a little bit bigger than they needed to be, it allowed me a little bit of space to be able to make sure that the words were centered before I adhered them on, but then I could just flip it over and cut away the excess cardstock. I decided to add some more dimension and pop the whole panel up on the front of the card, but it would look fantastic adhered directly to the card base, but I am addicted to dimension, so I had to. It wasn't even a choice. And wouldn't this card look fabulous, created in a monochromatic color palette? Anything, black and whites and greys would look amazing, or even just all the pastels. So check out these designs again today. They are very different. This first one was the floral background with a popped up sentiment, which just brought in depth and focus for the sentiment. And the second design here, where we used some inlay die cutting and created some color blocking with the words and sentiments. Let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite today, or if you're going to try either of these techniques. And I look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. Till then, happy paper crafting. Bye.
Wait, we have more where that came from. If you're after fabulous card making tutorials, you are definitely in the right spot. Our amazing design team create and upload fabulous video tutorials right to this YouTube channel. If you don't want to miss another amazing crafting tutorial, don't forget to subscribe and click that fun red button that you can see. Let's become paper crafting experts together.